Sabaidi, Najong, welcome back, subscribers. It's me, Sab, here again with another episode of Suffering with Silence. So today's episode, I actually had something entirely different planned out, and I actually already recorded a different episode, and I started editing it, but I decided to, at the very last minute, change it up and make a whole new episode because something recently happened in my life that I feel so much impact from, and I just figured I would rather talk about it. And so ultimately, I say it all the time, Suffering of Silence was built based off of experiences and trials and tribulations that I've had to overcome in my life pertaining to domestic violence and broader understanding of what domestic violence is and where these things come from, right? So we hear it all the time that domestic violence is usually carried as a pattern and as a cycle from most people's childhood, and most of us have experienced it from childhood, and which is why we continue those same cycles and patterns in our lives. And it is a lot more nuanced than that. And I feel like the difficult part of it is every single time I feel like I'm always trying to submerge from all of this. And just like I said with the cover art, it's me submerging from all these things that once used to hold me down in life and make me feel less than who I truly was. It's not just words, it's also things that have happened to me, things that have drastically changed me and traumatized me over the course of my life. And I'm constantly trying to submerge from all of that. Any unfortunate part with living and dealing with complex PTSD is that it's a constant battle, no matter how far you can get with your mental health journey and how as far as you can reach your happiness. And it's something that always is going to come up for you. It's something that will always be an everyday battle. And that's the honest truth. Maybe that is for me. I don't know. But I wish I were just at that point in my life where things were just picture perfect and all of this chaos can happen from my past. But I'm in this beautiful place in my life, and it's like every single time I'm trying to pave that way and create that life for myself, I feel like there's always something that keeps pulling me back to the same old shit and the same old ways, and nothing changes, or it feels like nothing changes. As much as I take 10 steps forward, I'm falling back another 30. And it just gets so difficult to keep going sometimes. And I never like to say this in a way of, I don't like saying this, but sometimes I just gotta get it off my chest. And it's crazy to me because most people in my life, their biggest concern is the man that they're dating. Their biggest concern is whether the man is cheating, or just their biggest concern is their romantic life. And for me, everything that just weighs much heavier for me is just like my family and everything that I've been through with them and just everything that I have to deal with. And to most people, my life looks so beautiful, it looks so amazing, especially as of recent. And I'm like, it looks like I'm really living out my dreams and I'm really striving and moving forward. But everything behind the scenes is not like that. I'm genuinely happy because of everything that I'm doing to make myself happy and really going after what I want. But then I am forced to realize how challenging and how difficult my relationship with my family is. And most people have great stories to tell about their families, and I want to be able to share wonderful stories about, I don't know, my heritage, my culture, and things that are worth talking about for AAPI Heritage Month. But I live a really different life than that. So much of the reality of the life I live, it's unbelievable. And I know people go through these things all the time, and people live through these things, you know what I mean? This is just, it's normalized in so many societies, and it's normalized in the places I've grown up in, and it's normalized in the communities I've grown up in. But I just don't want it to be normalized anymore. I don't want it to be okay and just desensitized from how impactful shit like this can be, how impactful domestic violence can be, how impactful unhealthy and toxic relationships can be with people in your life. And that doesn't mean romantic, that means every single one around you. And it's been so difficult for me to just, it's not that I'm ashamed of where I'm from, and I'm not ashamed of how I grew up, and I'm not ashamed of the life that we had. In so many ways, I'm always very humble in admitting that I come from a pretty privileged life. I was a spoiled little girl, and spoiled in not necessarily the same ways as most people would think, but my dad created a lot of privileges for us. And he worked so hard to make sure that we didn't have to understand or learn the reality of where we grew up. And I say privileges because we could have had it way worse, and my parents could have cared less where we grew up and how to protect us from all of that. And I always like to say I grew up on the north side of Milwaukee, which most people would say is one of the worser parts of Milwaukee. But I also grew up in small pockets of the north side that were actually really beautiful places. And I take pride in that because part of who I am is because of growing up on the north side and being in that environment. And I'm heavily influenced by much of that, for sure. But my parents were also very, I can't say involved because there were so many places and so many ways in which they were absent. And I don't want to shit on them in that way, because it's not like, I know that they tried their best, you know what I mean, but they couldn't control what was going on around us entirely. And the reality is that we grew up in an area that didn't show the best examples to anyone. And I'm always forever grateful that any trouble I got in wasn't necessarily extremely permanent repercussions to what could affect my life now. Not that having children is such a terrible and huge burden, but having children before I was ready to could have majorly impacted my life to this day. And at 29, I can still confidently say I am not ready to have a child anytime soon. And even thinking on everything else, I could have really ended up in jail. I could have really ended up with an awful criminal background at a very young age, because of things that I was getting myself into, because of things that I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing. And I knew better. Even at that age, I knew better. And I still chose to do those things. And the reason I started suffering of silence wasn't just because of the impact that domestic violence has made on me and my life personally, and directly, I should say, but also how it's impacted the next generation in my family. I'm sure so many people can relate to this. But do you know how heartbreaking it is to literally watch next generation in your family continue the same patterns and the same cycles that you've seen happen? And do you know how heartbreaking it is to try so hard to maintain your life and yourself and still try to show them and be an example to them that you can still want more? And it's not like I blame my parents, and I know that they tried their best. They did everything that they could, that they knew best how to, but we're not awful kids. We're not awful people. And I want to believe that. But sometimes it's like when shit like this happens to me, or when shit like this happens to my family, it makes you want to question whether you are a good person. It makes you question whether you actually have some fucking sense. And I'm not saying that people are wrong for cheering free your homie, because you want your homie free. You want the ones that you love out of jail. You want the ones that you love to experience the same freedom that you have. But then sometimes you're just so conflicted when you love someone so much and you're like, I want you to have your freedom. I want you to have a great life. But you're making choices and decisions in your life that keep landing you back in the same predicament that I'm fighting so hard for you to not. And I talk about learning to love and let go. I talk about that a lot, but it's so difficult sometimes. I've constantly gone in this same cycle and this heartbreaking feeling. every time I watch my nephews and my nieces just continue these cycles. And I don't talk about it often because they're not my stories to tell. But in my perspective and my experience and how it affects me, I'm not trying to be selfish because I think about obviously how much these things impact them directly. And I empathize dearly. But I'm in a place in my life where I really am thinking about myself more. And the more I think about myself, the more I think about how hurt I've been. And a few weeks back, I was asking that question on the Portabot series. How old would you say your inner child is? And I usually say around 11, right? Or at least that's what I feel. And to be very honest, I think my inner child is anywhere between 9 and 11. And the reason I choose those ages, and everyone I feel like has a different reason. Obviously, they shared, like Dorothy, she shared that it was when, she shared a very deep one. She said that it was because that was the age that her aunt was still in her life. And I didn't get to really say much in the moment, but that was really touching to me to even hear her say that, because for me, the reason I would think 9 to 11 is because at that age, that's when I knew my life was going to change forever. At that age, my older sister was about 15, 16, and she was having her first child. And I knew that immediately my life was going to completely change because she was not prepared to have a baby. And I knew that my parents were going to have to play a bigger role in that child's life. And so a lot of the wants and needs that I might have were going to continue to be neglected. And at that age, it sunk in for me. It sunk in for me really early on that my life was never going to be the same after that. And so that was 20 years ago. My nephew was born. And at that point, right, my sister she kept having kids. So between 9 and 11, I was very active in my nephew's and my niece's life. And it never really stopped there. From then on, from the age of 9 on, essentially, my siblings just all kept having kids. And that's when I really took on the auntie role. Although I've been an aunt since I was 8 months old. At 9, it was a lot more impactful because I was at an age in which I could understand more and I could comprehend what was really going on around me. And it was only natural that I was left alone often with those kids. And it didn't really change as I got older. It didn't really change at all. It just really got worse. Not worse in such a negative sense, but I don't think I really talk about this often, but unless you know me personally. But when I turned 18, that was when my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And at the same time, my nephews and niece were taken from my sister's custody. And my parents stepped up and took them in, of course, because those are their grandkids. And, does my dad love his grandkids. The way he rides or dies for them kids, even till his last breath. I'm sorry. It's really difficult because I haven't been perfect. I haven't been the best. But I've tried so hard. I made all the mistakes so that they wouldn't have to. It's so hard to see them continue the same cycles over and over again. And sometimes it's like I have to question whether we are good people. Are we decent people? Are we actually who we think we are? And this is where a lot of my imposter syndrome just comes from. Because it's every single time everyone sees on the surface, I'm doing these great things and I'm striving for more for myself and I'm trying to chase my dreams. But every single fucking time, there's always something that comes up and reminds me of someone I used to be. And it's so hard because I know this is normalized from where we come from. This is normal shit that people go through all the time. People live through these things. But I don't want to just survive these things. I want to actually thrive from it. I want to make something more of it. That's why I share these stories. That's why I share these experiences. Because I want people to know that it's possible. Break those curses. Don't keep it to yourself. You don't have to keep these things to yourself. You don't have to carry these burdens alone. And I could probably do more and I could be more active in my own community to offer better resources so that more generations to come don't have to keep these same cycles. But having to understand that I need to remove myself sometimes, and I need to step away from those things sometimes so that I can give more, so that I can find more resources to give and offer. And it's never that I forget where I come from. And I don't want to run away from where I come from because I love everything about it. It's shaped me into who I am. But it's so hard to carry those parts of me with me when I want to become I want to become someone so much more than that. And it's always that difficult balance of remaining humble to who you are and what you grew up with and grew up knowing, but still staying focused on who you see yourself as, because you deserve so much better, that you can achieve so much more. It's really difficult to balance all of that. And I just feel like people don't talk about it enough. People talk about it on the other side of it. People talk about how I just did what I had to do. And it's like, cool, but like, I also want to stay so grounded and so humble in where I come from. Still, I wish it weren't impossible to still stay so in touch with your community and where you come from and still become a much better version of yourself and reach that higher potential. I wish that there was a way I could carry all of that with me but not feel such a burden with it all. And maybe there are ways. It's so hard to manage it all. When I think back, I'm like, how many times I could have ended up in jail? How many times I could have ended up dead? How many times I could have ended up even fucking trafficked? How many fucking times I could have ended up addicted to drugs? How many fucking times I could have ended up on such an awful path in my life? And I had to stay grounded. I had to remember that I deep down always knew that I was made for more than that. I wish I could inspire so many other people to believe in that about themselves, so that they don't go down these cycles, so that they don't continue to do these things. But it's like, who am I? I can't even say it in the most eloquent of ways. I can't even say these things in such a way that can inspire other people. I can try my damnedest, but I don't even want to keep rambling on about this shit because I got shit to do. To be very fucking honest. But it's gonna be a long night for me. It's gonna be a long week for me. But having faith that I will always find my way to exactly where I'm deserving to be, that's one thing for sure. And I'm so grateful for those who believe in me, and I will not be giving up, because even with all the things that are going wrong in my life, I can't give up, because there's people that believe in me. There's a community, there's this safe space for me to be myself and still be appreciated. And I found that, and I'm not about to let anybody down. So make sure you guys keep supporting. Please become a subscriber, because it's really helping not just me, but my community and everyone else that I want to help, to just inspire them to want more for themselves and to see better for themselves. But you can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Suffering of Silence Pod. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Suffering of Silence Pod. I have some special Portapod episodes dropping in the next couple of weeks. So thanks so much. It's your girl Sab, and I'm gonna talk to y'all later.